Hello everyone. So we are back today. Myself Ashim Das, and today we will be continuing with the third chapter of Class 10 History, Nationalism in India. And today we are going to discuss the second topic, that is differing strands within the movement, that is the non-cooperation Khilafat movement. So let us try to understand how this non-cooperation Khilafat movement spread all over India in 1920s and how did the people respond to this movement. So the movement spread in towns and cities and the plantations. So let us find out what was the response of the people. So the differing strands means the different kinds of response or how the people reacted. So the non-cooperation Khilafat movement, as you know, the Khilafat was also the issue taken up by Mahatma Gandhi, and it became non-cooperation Khilafat movement. So the non-cooperation Khilafat movement began in January 1921. Various social groups participated in this movement, each with its own specific aspirations. All of them responded to the call of Swaraj, but the term meant different things to different people. So here it means that in the year 1921 January, when Mahatma Gandhi started and other leaders started the non-cooperation, all the social groups, different social groups of the society came and participated in this movement. However, they did not understand the meaning of the Swaraj, the word Swaraj, in a proper way. It meant different things to different people. Like someone thought that they are going to get some tax exemption, some are going to get independence. So different things were there. So let's see the movement in the towns. Let's see how did the people in the towns and cities react to the movement. Did they participate or not? So the movement started with the middle class participation in the cities. The middle class participation in the cities, like the thousands of students left the government controlled schools and colleges, headmasters and teachers resigned, and lawyers gave up their legal practices. The council elections were boycotted in most provinces or states. At that time they are known as provinces, except Madras, now it is known as Chennai, where the Justice Party, it was another party of the non-Brahmins, they felt that entering the council election was one way of gaining some power, which they did not get. Usually the Brahmins had access to. So in the towns, we found that the movement was mainly participated by the middle class people. The middle class people, the different kinds of businessmen, teachers, students, etc. And they stopped going to schools and colleges, and lawyers also resigned from their job, and they stopped their legal practices, and all these things were in a great response. Now the council elections were also being boycotted, and most of them boycotted. They said we will not take part in the election. However, one party was there in the province of Madras. They said, the Justice Party, they said that we will participate in the the council elections. Why? Because actually they had been also always been targeted, as they were non-Brahmins. They belong to the lower caste. So that is why they wanted to take part in that in order to gain some power. Now, let's see what were the effect of the non-cooperation movement on the economic front. Now, if you see the economic front, how much money and what was the profit and what was the loss, it was very more dramatic. Like it was very a great change in the business. Now the foreign goods were boycotted, the liquor shops were picketed, and foreign clothes were burnt in huge bonfires, and the import of the foreign cloth halved between 1921 and 22, and its value dropping from rupees 102 crore to rupees 57 crore only. And in many places, merchants and traders refused to trade in foreign goods and finance the foreign trade. As the boycott movement spread, the people began discarding imported clothes and wearing only the Indian ones, and production of the Indian textile and mills and handlooms went up. So in this paragraph, it has been said that the effect of the non-cooperation movement on the economic front was felt more in the country. The people did not buy the foreign goods. They were burned, boycotted. Liquor shops were picketed. Picketed in the sense, liquor shops mean the wine shops, the alcohol selling shops. The picketed is a form of demonstration or protest by which people block the entrance of the shop or factory or office and do not allow the people to go inside, like a mob or a crowd standing in front of the shop. And foreign cloth, they burned the foreign cloth in huge bonfires in the middle of the city. You can see some pictures earlier in the textbook, it is given there. So this import of the cloth from England also halved. Earlier in 19 21, 22, like the value was like 102 crore, it became only 57 crore. It was almost half, you can say. In many places, merchants, the different traders, and they say that we will not buy and sell foreign goods, we will not do business in foreign goods. Then as the boycott movement spread everywhere, people began discarding the important clothes, and also they only started using the Indian clothes. Why? Because the Indian clothes were made in India, and as a result, the handlooms and the mills of the Indian industrialists, their production went up. But as this movement spread, this movement also died down easily. Why? Because the movement in the cities gradually slowed down for a variety of reasons. Number one, khadi cloth was very more expensive than mass-produced mill cloth, and the poor people could not afford to buy it. How could then they boycott the mill cloth for so long? Similarly, the boycott of British institutions posed a problem. For the movement to be successful, alternative Indian institutions had to be set up so that they could be used in place of the British ones. These were slow to come up, and so the students and teachers began trickling in the sense that they came very slowly back and to the government school, and lawyers also joined work back in the government courts. So in this paragraph it has been said that although the movement was very good in the beginning, but in the time spread, and at the time the problems came up because the khadi cloth, which Mahatma Gandhi said you should wear the khadi cloth, this khadi cloth was expensive in comparison to the mill made cloth, and the people mostly in India were poor farmers, so they could not afford to buy it. They did not have this much money to buy the khadi cloth. Now they had to buy the mill cloth because they could afford the cheap cloth which were made in mill. Now, similarly, the British institutions, the schools and the colleges, they left, the teachers left, the students left, but they have to go somewhere to study. So where would they go to study? Because there were no alternative Indian institutions, and the schools or the colleges or universities were not such thing that could be made in one day or like 1 month like that. So that is why the problem came up that the students and the teachers and the different officials, all of them began searching that they had to go for some alternative, and it was not there. So this problem came up, and all the people were forced to go back to their British institutions only. So here we discussed that the students and the teachers began trickling back. Trickling back means going back in a slow pace back to the government schools, and lawyers also started going back to the government courts. So here we come to know the people were actually very enthusiastic, but they had to go back. Why? Because there was no other option. Now let us read the next sub point, that is rebellion in the countryside. Here the word rebellion is used here because the people rebelled or went against the British in the countryside. Countryside here means the urban, not the urban, sorry, the rural areas, that is the village areas. Now, from the cities, the non-cooperation movement spread to the countryside also, in the village areas, and it drew into its fold the struggles of the peasants and tribals, which were developing in different parts of India in the years after the war. Now, already the non-cooperation movement had spread, and the peasants and the tribals were mostly in the rural areas, so they also started getting the waves of this movement. So let us take the place of Awadh. So what happened in Awadh? Let's read about that. So Awadh was a province under British at the time, and so in Awadh, peasants or farmers were led by Baba Ramchandra. He was a sannyasi who had earlier been to Fiji as an indentured laborer. And the movement here was against talukdars and the landlords who demanded from the peasants exorbitantly, means very high rents, and also so many other taxes or cesses. Now, peasants had to do beggar and work at the landlord's farms also without any payment. So here we come to know that Baba Ramchandra was the main leader, and he was actually an indentured laborer. Earlier he was an indentured laborer. Indentured here means a kind of bond. The farmers had to sign a bond or do a contract that they will do work under a landlord or under the British, and they would be fixed like for a certain time period, and they had to do work or labor under him or the owner. So this Baba Ramchandra became a sannyasi, and later on he became a leader also. So let us find out what happened and how he started the movement. So this particular topic is also related that our peasants had to do beggar. Now, what is beggar? Now, beggar is a kind of work that they had to do, but however, they were not given any payment for that. And the talukdars and the landlords, I forgot to mention about that. The talukdars and the landlords were actually the rich zamindars, or the people those who owned large areas of land. Now, talukdar word comes from talukas, those who are the owners of big areas of land, and they force the peasants to do beggar or free work, free labor at their farms without any payment, like it is a kind of comparison to slavery. So this beggar work was without any kind of payment, so they were forced also. Now, as the tenants had no security of tenure, like they didn't know how many years they will be working there, how many months they will be having the contracts, and they were regularly evicted so that they could acquire no right over the leased land. This land was not there, so that is why they were forced to leave. The peasant movement demanded reduction of revenue and abolition of beggar also, and socially boycott of the oppressive landlords. In many places we found Nai Dhobi bunds were organized by the panchayats to deprive the landlords of the services of even barbers and washermen. So Nai and Dhobi means, Nai means barber and washerman, Nai means barber and Dhobi means washerman. So as I was telling you, this people, those who were working under the landlords and the talukdars, the peasants who did not have their own land, they were regularly evicted. Like they were told to go away, otherwise they would claim that this land is ours if they keep on farming on that land for a long time. So in order to let them have no claim over the leased land, they were told to go away. So these peasants actually wanted that our revenue, whatever tax we are giving, this should be stopped. The beggar system, the work without payment, should be also abolished, and they should socially boycott the landlords, those who are oppressive and dominating over them. So even the panchayats, the different panchayats in the areas of Awadh, they also say that if the landlords do not give any kind of concession to the farmers, the Nai and the Dhobis, that means the washermen and the barbers, would stop going to them. In the meantime, in June 1920, Jawaharlal Nehru began going around the villages in Awadh, talking to the villagers and trying to understand their grievances and their complaints, problems. By October, the Kisan Sabha, Awadh Kisan Sabha, one organization of the farmers, was set up, and it was headed by Jawaharlal Nehru and Baba Ramchandra and few other leaders, mainly from Congress. Within 1 month, over 300 branches had been set up in the villages around this Awadh region. So when the non-cooperation movement began the following year, what was the impact of the Awadh Kisan Sabha? We'll see that also. So as I told you that this Awadh Kisan Sabha was actually started by June 1920, and within 3-4 months, like June, July, August, September, October, 5 months, the Awadh Kisan Sabha was actually a big response, and there were 300 branches in the villages around the region. So all the farmers who were actually not members also, they also came and joined the Kisan Sabha to be a part of the bigger Awadh Kisan Sabha. Now let us see how did they participate. Did they join the non-cooperation Khilafat movement or not? So here we are going to see the non-cooperation movement when it began the following year. The effort of the Congress was to integrate the Awadh peasant struggle into the wider struggle. The peasant movement, however, developed in forms that the Congress leadership was not very happy with. As the movement spread in 1921, the houses of talukdars and merchants were attacked, and bazaars were looted, and grain hoards were taken over. In many places, local leaders told peasants that Gandhiji himself had declared that no taxes were to be paid and the land was to be redistributed among the poor. The name of Mahatma Gandhi was simply invoked to sanction all action and aspirations. So here we came to know all the peasants, when they heard that the non-cooperation Khilafat movement had started, then they decided to join and integrate as the Congress wanted, and they integrated. The Congress also helped to integrate or join the Awadh Kisan struggle with the wider struggle of non-cooperation Khilafat movement. But however, the things turned ugly when in 1921 the houses of the talukdars, the landlords, were attacked, and the merchants were also attacked, bazaars were looted, all the things were taken away. And when they were questioned that why are you doing like this, at the time many leaders said that Gandhiji himself had said that taxes are not to be paid and land will be distributed very soon among the poor. So whatever was being done by the farmers was taken for granted, that it was accepted by Congress and Mahatma Gandhi only had given the sanction for all the action and aspirations, which was actually not the thing, as Congress was unhappy with that. So now we are going to see what was the impact of the non-cooperation Khilafat movement on the tribals. So tribal peasants or farmers interpreted the message of Mahatma Gandhi and the idea of Swaraj in yet another way. In the Gudem hills of Andhra Pradesh, for instance, a militant guerrilla movement spread in early 1920s, a form which Congress could never approve of. Here, as in other forest regions, the colonial government had enclosed large forest areas, preventing the people from entering the forest to graze their cattle or to collect the fuel wood and also the fruits also. So these enriched the hill people. So in this paragraph, we are going to find out that how Mahatma Gandhi's idea of Swaraj was interpreted by the tribal peasants or the tribal farmers. So let us find out what happened in the Gudem hills of Andhra Pradesh. So Gudem hills of Andhra Pradesh is actually a tribal area, and they are actually a militant, aggressive, violent guerrilla warfare or guerrilla movement. Like they are hiding and doing the act of attacking the British and all. That was done. Like Mahatma Gandhi never said that to follow violence, but however they followed violence and they decided to attack the British. Why they were angry? Because as you know, in last year also you got the colonial government had stopped the hill people, the tribal people from entering the forest to get their things. That is why they were angry. Not only that, their livelihoods were affected and their traditional right where their grandfathers had been there were also being denied. When the government began forcing them to contribute beggar for road building, then the hill people revolted. So again, not only they were not permitted to go inside the forest, but also they were forced to do some kind of extra work without any payment, that is the beggar work for road building and clearance of the forest and all, everything like that. So when the hill people were tortured and dominated by the British in this way, they could tolerate no more, and the hill people of the Gudem hills revolted. And here we come to know about a person who was the leader of this revolt, and the name of the person was Alluri Sitaram Raju, and he was a very interesting figure. And in fact, now also you will find his stories when you read the folklore of Andhra Pradesh. So Alluri Sitaram Raju himself claimed that he had a variety of special powers. He could make correct astrological predictions and heal people, make the people all right, and he could survive even bullet shots also. Even bullets and even weapons also could not harm him. Captivated by Raju, the rebels proclaimed that he was an incarnation of God, and Raju talked of the greatness of Mahatma Gandhi, said that he was inspired by the non-cooperation movement. So let us find out that Alluri Sitaram Raju, how did he become so popular? So he himself said that I have special powers, and people also believed. Why? Because he could make some correct astrological prediction, and he knew little bit of maybe medicine to heal the people, and he could once, maybe he was also left unharmed when the bullets were unable to target him. So at the time people had a great idea about Alluri Sitaram Raju, and people compared him that he was an incarnation or like presentation of God. And Raju, that is Alluri Sitaram Raju, talked of the greatness of Mahatma Gandhi and said that I like Mahatma Gandhi and I'm inspired by the non-cooperation movement. And he told the people to wear khadi clothes and give up drinking. At the same time, he asserted that India could liberate it only by the use of force and not non-violence. The Gudem rebels attacked the police stations and attempted to kill the British officials and carried on guerrilla warfare for achieving Swaraj. At last, Raju was captured and finally executed or killed in 1924, and over time he became a folk hero. So here we come to know that he was a follower of Mahatma Gandhi. He said that people should wear khadi clothes and should not drink alcohol or liquor, and at the same time he was also contradictory to the views of Mahatma Gandhi. He said that Gandhiji said non-violence is the route for independence, but he said India could never be liberated if we are using non-violence. We have to use force, which could be liberated only by the use of force. And the Gudem rebels attacked the police stations and attempted to kill the British officials, and they carried on these kind of things. And finally, he was captured and killed, but his stories remain now also. Next topic is Swaraj in the plantations. How did the workers have their own understanding in the plantations about Mahatma Gandhi? So they had their own understanding of Mahatma Gandhi and the notion means your idea of Swaraj. For plantation workers in Assam, freedom means the right to move freely in and out of the confined space in which they were enclosed. It meant retaining a link with the village from where they had come from. Under the Inland Immigration Act of 1859, the plantation workers were not permitted to leave the tea gardens without permission, and in fact they were rarely given such kind of permission. So here we come to know how did the plantation workers, tea plantation workers mainly in Assam, had different idea of Swaraj. So here we see that they thought that Swaraj or freedom is that not any kind of excuse from tax or revenues will be excuse, nothing like that, but they thought that we will get the freedom to go away from here and move in and out of the confined tea plantation areas. So they thought that they will go back to their own village from where they had come, because earlier there was one act passed in 1859. Under this Inland Immigration Act, plantation workers were not permitted to leave. They could not leave the area in which they are working, the plantations in which they were working, and they had to apply for permission, but they were not given permission because the British wanted constant labor and constant work of the workers in the tea plantations. So when they heard of the non-cooperation movement, thousands of these plantation workers defied the authorities, the British, and left the plantations and headed home. They believed that Gandhi Raj was coming and everyone would be given land in their own villages. They, however, never reached their destination and stranded on the way only by railway and steamer strike. They were caught by the police and brutally beaten up. So here we come to know that when they heard that non-cooperation movement has started, most of them thought that Gandhi Raj is coming, and Gandhi Raj is coming means everybody will get land in their own villages. So without being afraid of anything, they left all the work and defied the authorities and ran away from the plantations. But they could never reach the destination because in the midway only there was a railway and steamer strike, and they were caught by the police and they were brutally beaten up and sent back to the plantations where they had come from. Now these visions of whatever movements we saw, actually the Congress did not think it will happen like that. They were not defined by the Congress program. They interpreted the term Swaraj in their own ways, imagining it to be a time when all the suffering and all the troubles would be over. Yet, when the tribal chanted Mahatma Gandhi's name and raised slogans demanding Swatantra Bharat, they were emotionally relating to an all-India agitation. When they acted in the name of Mahatma Gandhi or linked their movement to that of the Congress, they were identifying with a movement that everybody was going beyond the limits of the immediate locality. So here we come to know that whatever movement had started, the non-cooperation Khilafat movement, the peasants, the tribals, the plantation workers, the middle class people, all of them participated. But however, they thought that the term Swaraj or freedom in their own way. Someone thought that they would give less tax. Someone thought that they will get some kind of land from the government, or Gandhiji will give that. So everybody imagined that their sufferings and their troubles would completely be over and they would get a better life. Yet when the tribals chanted Gandhiji's name and they did not know what is Swatantra Bharat, they raised the slogan Swatantra Bharat. They were emotionally relating to an all India agitation. They were a part of a big agitation which was taking part in all over the country. So when they acted in the name of Mahatma Gandhi or linked the movement also with that of the Congress, they were identifying themselves that went beyond the limits of their immediate locality. It was not only limited to their own area, own state or own village or own locality. It spread out of that, and unknowingly or knowingly they became a part of a very big agitation. And this is the picture of the Chauri Chora incident in 1922 when the people were actually killed. So this is what we learned today. In the next video we'll learn about towards civil disobedience. So thank you, and please go through it. Thank you so much for giving a patient hearing.